Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Astrology Now with astrologer Babula Clement and myself, Cheryl Gottschall. So, hi, Babula. It's lovely to see you again.
Hi, Cheryl. Thanks. You
How are
too.
you keeping?
Oh, good. I'm recovering from a bout of the winter flu, so my voice sounds a little bit scratchy, I imagine. But other than that, I'm doing great.
Oh, that's good. There's a bit of it going around. But anyway,
Yeah.
I'm glad you're starting to feel good.
Yeah.
So, we're digging into the next lunar cycle, which is with the full moon in Sagittarius coming up very soon, actually. So
Yeah.
we get into it. So me being a Sagittarius, I have to say this is very familiar to me. I know some of the traits are there optimistic and idealistic and quite philosophical and freedom loving. So and there's obvious, and also they can be overindulgent, which I will go into later, maybe.
That's right.
So why don't you take it away with the full moon in Sagittarius?
Okay. So the full moon, just to be precise for a moment about it, is on the 14th of June, and this is East Coast of Australia time at 9:51 p.m. So that's on Tuesday night. And it's the culmination of the Gemini lunar cycle that started at the Gemini new moon 2 weeks previously. So now the sun has moved on a bit in Gemini, and the moon, of course, she's moved right around, and she's now come to that opposite point, opposite the sun. I actually went outside last night, even though it was really cold. I was all rugged up in my dressing gown. And I've just got a plastic chair out in the garden. I can go and sit there in the sun. And the night was so beautiful. It was so still and clear, and the moon's growing and getting really bright. And it was just beautiful to sit out there in the moonlight, and I think that's a wonderful thing to do around the full moon time, literal moon bathing. We love to sunbathe, especially in winter, literally moon bathe. It's a beautiful thing. It was just gorgeous.
What about people like I'm a full moon baby? I mean, what significance does that have with sitting out under the full moon?
Oh, I think that would be very, very powerful and very helpful. It would sort of resonate with you. You'd really connect to that energetic sense and feeling of the moon when she's in full illumination. In astrology, often the sun and the moon are called the luminaries. They're bodies of light. But of course, the moon goes through these various phases in her stages of light. Well, the full moon, of course, is when it's like the lights are on. The light is turned on and turned up. So it's a high energy time. It's a time of brightness. And even, the mystics would talk about, meditating on a new moon when the moon is dark is people experience it as a much more inward pull, like meditation becomes very inward and still and quiet and deep. When we meditate on the full moon, it's traditionally often been known as a time of the potential for awakening and enlightenment, because the light is so strong and it stirs us. We know that's true of nature. We know people who work in all kinds of emergency departments, like everything's up, emotions are up, energy is up, nature is on the move, sap is rising in the trees, the animals are busy mating, it's just everything's switched on and turned up. Now, when the full moon's in Sagittarius, that's pretty high volume, like really turning up the dial.
Yes, that's party.
Party, that's right. That's right. And look, you've got this gorgeous multicolored scarf on, and that beautiful cardigan or sweater behind you that is fuchsia purple, which is a very Sagittarian color, even though it's a fire sign. Sagittarius really gravitate, I've noticed, towards the purples. And if you think about it, Sagittarius is ruled by the planet Jupiter. And Jupiter seems to have this relationship to purple. Like we know in religious organizations, purple has been regarded as a bit of a special, like the important people. wear purple. Royalty wear purple, like it's being taken.
Can I have that in writing?
But it's a bit of a distorted version.
Of course.
But you know, it's a sense of royal purple. You know, wearing
Yes.
purple makes
Like
you
the
more
bishops.
That
Yeah.
exactly.
Yep.
It's a symbol of being more important, you know. But it's just that Sag is such a big energy. It's a big energy of confidence, of inspiration, of fun, of expansion, travel, broadening our horizons.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's like I was saying, it's extravagant. It's an extravagant sign because it's, you know, represented by that Jupiter, which is everything is just magnified, you know. So
Exactly.
it's also can be exaggerative.
Absolutely.
Not saying that I am, but and that it's very truth-seeking and truth-telling to the point of being quite blunt at times.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Direct. Totally direct.
Correct, and getting to the heart of things.
Exactly.
But I was interested in the mythology around Sagittarius being represented by the Centaur, being the half man, half horse spirit symbol, and you know, has that Sagittarian trait of galloping with wild abandon towards new adventures. You know, so there's sort of like a rawness and animalistic, I guess, attitude and a sense of free flowing naturalness of the Centaur. But it's not the only animal that sort of represents, well, put it this way, I was reading in the Shaman Oracle deck that it can be represented by the crow as well, the crow it's the keeper of universal truth and the law of truth, because, you know, with that Sagittarian honesty and philosophy, getting to the truth of things. So the crow teaches us to walk our talk and have no incongruence between who we say we are and who we really know ourselves to be.
I love that.
Yeah, so it insists that we create truth instead of seeking it, by bringing truth to every situation we find ourselves in. And I think that's really interesting. And apparently it goes on to say that when Crow appears, she challenges our perceptions and to strengthen our principles and our relationship with spirit. So, and you can't walk your talk. You can't be in, I think, connection with spirit without walking your talk, you know, being the truth of who you are.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that's really interesting.
That's fantastic. I love that. That's really fantastic. And Sagittarius is a sign that's very connected to what we could call the wild.
Yes.
It has a wild quality about it. It's like a wild stallion, you know, who's been corralled into a fence and will just do whatever it has to do to leap over that fence and make a break for freedom.
Yeah.
You know, and the horizon and space, like Sagittarius is a sign that likes to live in the country where there's space and no, like Australia, even though it's a Capricorn country, and we know that the governmental systems and structures are very Saturnian, Capricornian, there's actually in the chart of the nation a lot of planets in Sagittarius. And so we have these big, wide open spaces, vast tracts of just, you know, not entirely emptiness, but it's got that big open, you know, hitting the open highway. Sag loves nothing more than just hitting that open road, you know, and just taking off into the distance. And I've driven out there to Central Australia, and I just adore, I just gaze out the window at this vastness of sky and horizon and land. And some people might not enjoy that, but I loved it. Because you feel so expansive.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's a freedom. You're right. It's absolutely a freedom-loving sign, an adventure-loving sign. It's got an adventurous spirit, always seeking truth through higher knowledge.
Yeah.
Such as astrology or going to university or studying religions, but also through travel. You know, we grow, you know, all of us who've been overseas, which most people have, Australians love to travel.
I love to travel.
those experiences change us, they expand our point of view, don't they?
They do, they do. And that's the thing about it, is that, you know, it's about the clarity, because when we're trying to see the truth of things, our perceptions change. You know, truth drives the clarity that we need to be able to get a clearer view of what's going on without our fears and anxieties sort of pushed aside. And I do think that, like you say, Sagittarius, I mean, you don't often see a fearful horse, for example, do you?
That's right.
They'll gallop and they'll run, and if anything, they'll challenge you more than anything.
Right. I mean, there are some who've been, you know, abused so badly that they've lost
their natural nature.
That's right.
Not to be, you know, as opposed to, say, Cancerian nature, which is, you know, it pulls back and it's
protective.
Yes, but not that Sagittarian nature.
And I think that's what we love so much about horses. You know, we see a horse, even see a video or an image of a free horse galloping, and it stirs that feeling in us, doesn't it?
It does.
Oh my God, look at that, so magnificent.
Yeah. And when I was a kid, I lived on a cattle station for a couple of years with my parents. My father was the station master, and I loved being out in the country where there was nothing around.
That's right.
You know, and I used to ride horses, you know, in various places that my dad lived. And he wanted to make sure that I knew how to ride a horse, and I knew how to do trick riding and show jumping, that sort of stuff.
So there's that quality that you experienced in that time of being wild and free.
Yes, being me.
That's right. Yes. That's right. Which is, and wild and free is like at the heart of Sagittarius, really, that sense of that stallion, that horse, that centaur. And of course, the centaur, the Sagittarian centaur, the upper body is human. So it represents the qualities of intelligence, and this is, you know, if we're looking for signs that represent intelligence and knowledge, Sagittarius is definitely one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that it's the sign of the seeker, the searching, seeking, questing, going on a quest, a journey, spiritually, philosophically, intellectually, experientially. It's not like sitting and reading about, you know, a country like India in a book. It's actually buying a ticket and going there and living there.
Exactly.
Living there for 12 months.
Exactly. And I'm happy
and that's right. And having the experience. That's right.
Yeah.
It's a fire sign. It has to take that action, you know, fire.
Yeah. Right. And speaking of the wildness of Sagittarius, I think I was looking at some of the gods that represent Sagittarius, and which brings me to the overindulgence. And I was looking at Dionysus, who reflects the Sagittarian trait of overindulgence. He was the god of wine and revelry, and talk about wildness, you know.
That's right.
So the female followers of Dionysus were known as the Menaids, who were the priestesses of Dionysus, and they were said to be possessed by the spirit of Dionysus. That's and right. They used to have ecstatic dances. They were a significant part of the rites that they performed within those rites. Their behaviors mostly relied on instinctive and emotional reflexes instead of reason, sort of like, you know, like a horse would, or a centaur might, you know.
Yeah, and it was out in the wilds. It was out in the country, in the groves and the trees and the wilderness.
Yes, and nature's and humanity's wild aspects were a significant aspect of their prayer too. And in their ancient sources, their transcendence gave them unparalleled courage and strength, because they didn't care about earthly consequences. And that's where we see the manifestation of this in overindulgence. And because you think, oh, bugger it, I'm just going to eat that kilo of chocolate or that huge packet of chips, you know, because Sagittarius energy doesn't care about the earthly consequences of those sorts of things, and just overindulge.
and it doesn't worry about tomorrow's security. It's not a sign that's concerned about that.
That's right. Yeah. So
it's not very, and that's why Capricorn comes after Sagittarius.
It's like, pull that in, people.
Reins it in, you know. But it's interesting, even that term reining it in, isn't it? You know, how a horse is tamed and given bridles and reins.
Yeah. But, you
And
know,
it's
I'll just
controlled
finish
by
up
someone.
because there was one before we move on. In one story about Dionysus, he traveled from Greece across Turkey into Asia. And when he reached India, on a chariot pulled by panthers, of course, he conquered the land with wine and dance rather than weapons and war. So basically he said, hey, let's party and be friends.
Right. That's right.
I think that's hilarious.
It is. It is. And what's very interesting, I could see we could talk about this for quite some time.
We're trying to get the full-bodied spirit of Sagittarius.
That's right. The energetic connection to it, because it's a sign of enthusiasm and
Yeah.
passion and lust for life and fun and enjoyment. Like, I mean, I know a lot of Sagittarius. There's a lot of Sagittarians in the world of astrology, for example. And, you know, I've been to many astrology conferences over the years, and there's always a big party celebration on the Saturday night. And they're an absolute hoot because there's so many Sagittarians in the room and people with a lot of Sag energy. It's just that wonderful, exuberant, you know, you use the word positive in the beginning. It's always this kind of positive, glass is half full, every cloud has a silver lining way of framing everything that's natural and instinctive in Sagittarius.
Well, that's that philosophical approach to life.
That's right.
You know, like, well, what can I learn out of this? You know, that sort of attitude, rather than drowning yourself in your sorrows. It's all about, okay, well,
and sort of collapsing and shrinking,
yeah,
and caving in. That's right.
Yeah.
That spirit. So I think this full moon is a real invitation for us all to what in fact, you know, even as we're talking now, the moon's just gone into Sagittarius. So, you know, so we're kind of in the zone.
Yeah. I'm feeling a lot of fun.
That's right. That's right. And so it's a wonderful invitation over these few days to feel like, what inspires me? What brings me that spark? Like, I'm recovering from the flu and I'm slowly beginning to feel some energy coming back and starting to think, oh, okay, maybe I can do that now. And because I had no energy for a couple of weeks, just flattened. So what's inspiring to us? What's fun? You know, what's going to make you feel like, yeah, this is fun. I'm having some fun. I'm enjoying myself. I'm inspired. I feel uplifted. But it's also a sign that's got a lot to do with our spiritual, philosophical point of view. And what's particularly interesting, there's so many things I can feel like we could talk for hours, we could say, is that this full moon, remember the moon's in Sagittarius exactly opposite the sun in Gemini. That axis of Gemini and Sagittarius has just got everything to do with information, knowledge, words, ideas, communication, learning, all forms of education, teaching, writing, and very much connected to things like the media, journalism, and so on. So those themes always come up really strong when we've got this Gemini Sagittarius axis. You know, the last couple of years, the last 2 years, we had the eclipses were all going on.
Yeah.
In Gemini Sag, because that's where the nodes were. Now they're in Taurus Scorpio and they've been very intense. But this whole issue around media and truth telling and censorship and so on, you know, is always up to the fore. And this particular full moon has an exact square to Neptune, exact within 2 degrees anyway. So the full moon's at 23 of Sag square Neptune at 25 of Pisces, which squares then down to the sun. So it's a T-square full moon with Neptune. So very often at a full or new moon, there's another planet, usually at least one, that has a strong impact on that moment. And this one is Neptune. So Neptune brings in a whole other flavor and a whole other very strong and important influence. And there's a few things we can say about that. One of them is that spiritually, this can be a very profound and uplifting time for people. Like for people who meditate regularly, you might find a lot opens up. Like it's a very expansive, open, vast energy. It's not an energy, this full moon, for contracting and shrinking. Like, how can we energetically open, even in all our souls, in whatever way we feel called to? What will inspire and uplift, and what are we continuing to let go of? I mean, I think the human race is having to go with Neptune in Pisces all these years, and a few more years to go. There's a lot of letting go that's going on, a lot of releasing and emptying out. And with that is a lot of grief as well.
I think too, with that Sagittarian energy, to me, there's a sense of stepping up.
Yes.
You know, because that's expansive. So it also has that, like, while you've got the letting go going on, it's also, okay, so as I let go, I also step up.
Yes.
You know? Yeah. And
I love that. That's right. Because Sag is one of the main signs. Aquarius is the other one, really, that its view is always to the future. It looks forward. Yeah. It's always like, you know, we're not going back that way, we're going this way. And so this is a future oriented, it's all about possibilities, this full moon. And squared in Neptune, yes, Neptune squares to Sun and Moon are challenging in some ways, but there's always that beautiful quality of vision. What's the vision of what's actually possible as we move forward? Yes, the world's falling apart and disintegrating around our ankles, and it's rough going in many ways, but out of it, you know, as we know, all these amazing other things are happening, which are seeds of the new world that's coming and that we're creating. It's not just coming, we're creating it. Yeah.
It's quite a visionary sign.
Very.
And I do always look forward. I don't often look backwards, unless someone brings something up in conversation, but not like I think that Capricorn energy might look back towards things of the past, but I'm always, and I've got Aquarius rising as well. So I'm always futuristically oriented. And it's funny you bring that up, because I was having that conversation on the weekend with friends about certain people would be quite happy living in the architecture of ancient cultures, and I'm saying no, I'd rather live in futuristic style place like on Star Trek or something like that. You know, that's my dream, to live in that. Yeah, so that's the difference.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's because Capricorn is very much oriented towards traditions and ancient traditions, but that's right. Sagittarius is always this expansive vision of more, of larger, of bigger, of future, of where we're going, of what's possible. And see, to me, Sagittarius is a sign that just says yes to life.
Yeah.
You know, it's just yes. Yes.
That's why they become so diffused sometimes. You've got too many fingers and too many parts.
That's right.
They've got to get a bit focused.
And this full moon is quite diffusive, because it's Gemini, Sagittarius, and squared by the Neptune in Pisces. These are all mutable signs, and Neptune is just so boundary-less. And Sagittarius is not a sign that likes boundaries and fences. Thank you very much.
Yes.
You know, freedom. It's all about freedom and truth. So I think it's, you know, like really addressing all the veils of illusion that have been operating on planet Earth for millennia, and finding the truth in amongst all of that, for those veils one by one to be peeled back, and another layer. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that around this full moon too, like more veils being parted and seeing more clearly and seeing more and understanding more. You know, that seeker, that search for truth is very strong in this sign.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
So yes, it's and you know, I love to play with asteroids.
Yes, you do.
And other bits and pieces. So this full moon is also very close to the galactic center. So the full moon's at 23 of Sag, the galactic center, which moves like the most minimal amount over centuries, is currently at 26 degrees of Sag and pretty much sitting there the whole time. So this full moon is, and that's a very powerful, like from Earth, it's literally the center of our galaxy. It's the galactic center, and it's a very powerful, potent point. So there's that. There's also an outer body, one of the more recent ones, discovered a name called Vada, and she's a star goddess very much connected to creation. So there are other things that I'll come to in a minute too. There's something about this full moon in Sag that has a lot to do with what we were saying about creation. Like, what are we creating in a positive way that's going to contribute to a better future?
Yeah.
A lot of that will be to do with our thinking. You know, we've got to really, I think this is a great time during this full moon for us to really examine our thinking and where we're getting caught in negativity. And because it's very easy in this world to sometimes fall into a pit of despair and negativity.
Yes.
But I think, you know, let's lift ourselves up. Let's get uplifted and get inspired to how am I contributing to creating a better future?
Yes. Yeah.
You know,
I think that's important.
I think it's super important.
Yes.
There is an asteroid named after the pre-Hellenic goddess Themis, who is another creatress goddess, you know, one of the earlier, very, very, very ancient she is, to do with the creation of worlds. So she's right on that Neptune point, and so is the asteroid Reiki.
Oh, yes, yes.
And I love that on Neptune, because Reiki healing in many ways is very Neptunian.
It is.
You know, people would say, well, I can't see anything happening, because it's subtle energetic connection to universal healing consciousness. You know, it's very Neptunian in a way. So, by the way, Themis wasn't only an ancient creatrix. She was also the founder of the oracle at Delphi, way before Apollo and the gods showed up. So she's a seer, a seeress, prophetess as well. So I love that. You know, it's great, isn't it? So she's right there. And so that really, to me, just, you know, what I talked about, Vada and the galactic center on the full moon, Reiki and Themis on Neptune, and then on the sun, you know, which is the point opposite the full moon, we have the goddess Sappho.
Okay.
And Sappho lived on the island of Lesbos in the ancient classical Greek world. And people, you know, I know lesbians have sort of taken her on as almost their sort of patron goddess, and I understand that. And the symbol we use in astrology for Sappho is two Venus symbols joined together.
Yeah.
But she actually ran, to me, where I really go to with Sappho is, yes, she's absolutely about women. She ran a school for women on the island of Lesbos, and she was a poetess. And there's a few fragments of her poetry that still remain. Beautiful romantic love poetry.
Right.
So she's on this, on the sun, you know, the sun, full moon, Neptune story. So there's something going on here to me around writing, inspiration, our thinking, being uplifted, being spiritually connected, you know, and people can sort of take from that whatever seems to resonate with them. But that's what I feel is energetically going on in many ways.
Yeah.
You know, like, are we listening to all the BS that's coming out of the TV, you know, or are we allowing ourselves to be inspired and uplifted by something else?
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to even articulate that, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like it's something that's nebulous, very Neptunian, which, you know, is hard to grasp, but you just sense it.
Yes. I mean, look, for some people, it might even be suddenly they're inspired to write poetry, or friends getting together and having just really open, easy, enjoyable, fun conversations, you know, on this full moon. I think it's perfect.
Yes.
So I think that pretty well covers this full moon. So shall I carry on to the next thing?
Absolutely.
All right.
And make it snappy. Because we spent so much time on it. But I think it was really interesting though.
I think it's really interesting too. But yes, I will. I'll continue. I shall carry on. So we know that Mercury is now direct. Hallelujah.
No, I don't mean to make it snappy. Take it as long as you like.
Yeah, no, I will. I'm aware that we have spent a lot of time there. So on the date of the full moon, on the 14th, Mercury actually moves into Gemini. It went into Gemini and then it turned back and went back into Taurus. Moving forward, it will come out of Taurus and come back into Gemini, which is happy for Mercury. So Mercury will be in its own sign of Gemini, which is fabulous, I think, happening on this full moon in Gemini Sagittarius.
Yeah.
It's going to really activate our mental faculties. So it's going to just keep the mind really switched on, which is great. We enjoy that. So that'll be for a few weeks. Mercury will make its way through Gemini. On the 16th of June, a couple of interesting things happening. Mars, now in Aries, in his own sign, so he's in full power, the warrior energy, is going to make a conjunction with Chiron. So that means really all this week, Mars is very close to Chiron. And we'll make the exact conjunction on the 16th at 15 degrees and 56 minutes of Aries. So, some people listening might have something in their chart. I've got Jupiter at 17 of Aries, so it's very close. So that's a really interesting one because, Chiron's got a lot to do with healing and wounding and illness and the spiritual lessons and realizations that come out of the healing process and out of illness and wounding. It's what I've been in this kind of fluey state for 2 weeks, and there was a few days there where literally I just kept going back to bed and sleeping, which is not like me. Hours. This went on for about 3 or 4 days. And then emerging out of that, I'm realizing something's shifted in me, something's changed. I'm looking at a few things through a different lens, I'm reconsidering certain things, and things come out of those healing processes. Something shifts for us. I've always experienced that with Chiron, through the suffering and the struggle, because, nobody likes being sick. It's no fun.
Not at all. No.
Not at all. So Mars energizes, it brings energy and stimulation and action. And I think as he meets Chiron, it could be through some kind of situation that we're experiencing, an illness, a wounding, a difficulty. There might be some kind of new action that suddenly arises. We go, okay, I'm going to do that now. I'm going to start it right now. I'm going to act on this, or I'm going to step up or step forward, or I can't keep doing this the same way anymore. I need to change it. That's Aries. News. And there might be a lot of healing in that. So I just kind of throw that out there. I don't know exactly how that will.
So Chiron with Aries, though, that's about our personal identity, isn't it? Really?
In many ways, it is our autonomy, our independence, our sovereignty.
Who we are.
Our sense of self-identity.
Yeah.
It's also very much the sign of the masculine principle, as is Mars, the ruler of Aries. So all these years, these 9 years while Chiron's moving through Aries, I think one of the themes just collectively is around the wounded masculine, the wounded warrior.
Yeah, I see that too. Yeah.
So this could come up strongly with the Mars conjunction to Aries, for some men and women and relationships with men. We might sort of see some things around there and go, oh, wow, that's exactly that, an expression of that Mars Aries. So
I see the masculine. My observation is it's trying to find its footing, because there's a strong sense of the goddess rising, But the masculine's trying to go, okay, well, where do I fit in here? You know, that sort of thing.
Exactly. And I think, you know, in my perception, there are forces in this world who are determined to what's the word? Demasculate, or is that the word? Emasculate.
Yep.
Males. I mean, we know that sperm counts are dropping like crazy. Fertility rates are just going through the floor. There's a lot of reasons for that. It's accelerating. Yeah, that's a whole other thorny topic that we. Yeah,
that's a whole other podcast.
that's really opening up a door. So, you know, but yeah, I think this is an important issue. I'm just thinking, I might run a workshop about all that one day, you know, astrologically, you know, from the astrological point of view, because I'm interested in this idea.
Yeah.
On the same day, on the 16th of June, there is an asteroid that I follow a lot. I just find her very interesting, and she's quite prominent in my own chart. This is Hygeia, the goddess of healing and medicine. Temples to her and her father Asclepius. They were both healing god and goddess. They work together a lot as the feminine masculine. She has a lot to do with health and healing and medicine, public health, and so on and so on. She moved into Scorpio around Christmas, is spending 10 months in Scorpio because she's been in a retrograde phase in early Scorpio. On the 16th, same day as Mars conjuncts Chiron, the healer, Hygeia, the goddess of healing, turns direct at 2 degrees of Scorpio.
Well, that's an interesting synchronicity, isn't it?
I think it's fascinating.
Yeah.
I really do. And I feel like we might see some interesting developments in the world around issues to do with health and healing and medicine, which is like, you know, the issue of medical tyranny and so on. All these themes are like in our face. But our own personal healing journey as well. Because when, like Hygeia in Scorpio, the healing journey takes us very, very deep. Like I feel like I've been in something really deep, you know, in this last, particularly over this last week or so. And it's very, I relate it for myself very much to that Hygeia in Scorpio. I'm kind of quite pleased she's going to be turning direct and moving forward, because she has been retrograde for some time, since March. And the sun will be square Neptune. So the 16th is quite a strong day, actually. Be an interesting day to take note of. And then we come to the 21st of June, the solstice. Yep. So for us, that's the winter solstice.
Yep.
Every year, it's always around the 21st when the sun moves into 0 degrees and 0 minutes of Cancer. The sun will come out of Gemini, go into Cancer. It's a very powerful day, you know, these four, the two solstices and equinoxes.
Yeah, and I'm always aware of the 21st of June because it's my mother's birthday.
Wow. Wow. Amazing. Yeah. So it's a very potent day. And you know, it sort of symbolizes the sun having reached its furthest point north of the equator, and it will slowly begin. I mean, the sun doesn't turn, it's because of the earth being tilted on its axis, you know, it's to do with that. But for us, it looks like the sun will slowly begin to make its way back to the southern area towards the equator. And when it gets to the equator, it'll be the equinox, of course. So I, for one, who does not enjoy the cold, I'm a summer girl through and through. I think I was meant to live on a tropical island somewhere. I'm always kind of happy when, I mean, it's still cold and it's still winter for a couple of months, but there's that sense of the sun begins to return, move towards the south again. And if you watch seasonally the sun on the horizon, you can see it, you know, you can see the sun's rising at a different point along the horizon.
Yeah.
It's gone. Yeah.
like you say, it's still cold, but it's the lengthening of the light that I enjoy. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then it slowly warms. Yeah.
That's right. So it's the shortest day of the year for us, the least sunlight. Mind you, I do sleep in much better.
Yes, I do too, actually.
I do get more sleep.
Yes.
So I'm grateful for that. Okay, so yeah, it's a very powerful day. It's a turning point in the annual year, in the annual year, in the annual cycle. It's a very important turning point. 23rd of June, Venus goes into Gemini.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's kind of interesting because Venus has been happily in her own sign of Taurus. And in a system called esoteric astrology, they say that Venus actually rules Gemini.
Oh, okay.
I know, it's very interesting. I've always been fascinated by that. And I haven't studied it in great depth, but I've kind of dabbled in esoteric astrology a bit, and there's certain things about it I really enjoy. And it's to do, as in my understanding, with this Venus in Gemini is about connecting the mind with the heart.
Makes sense.
Yes. So if we're just living in the head and disconnected from the heart, we're just all in thinking all the time, and there's no real connection, and even relationships are just happening on a mental level.
Yeah.
But when through the Venus principle, we can actually connect the mind with the heart, communication is a very different thing. It's about real connection.
Yeah, I was just thinking too, it reminds me, like when you're connecting the upper chakras with the heart, it comes out through the throat. So it's about speaking with kindness too, communicating with kindness.
Yes.
Yeah.
And consideration of the other and so on. And because that's right, because Venus, she is the principle of love and beauty and harmony.
Yep.
So I think this is a very, and Gemini is that sign of duality. There's two sides to everything. Well, this is an interesting concept, even in a conversation with someone, isn't it? Are we willing to stop and actually open our heart and listen to what someone else has to say, even though it might be quite different to what we think? Maybe there's a gem in there for us. Maybe there's something they've said that we haven't considered before.
Yeah. And if you're thinking about the colors of the chakras, with the heart being green, and let's say the mind being with the Mercury being yellow, put them together, and you get this. Actually, what color do you get? It's like an olive green, really, isn't it?
Yes, or would it even be like a lime green, possibly, or more olivey green with a lot of yellow?
I think it would be more olive, because, and then that would represent leading and speaking from the feminine side, really. That feminine leadership, which is about using all the feminine skills. And I don't actually. So and when we put those two together, that brings hope as well, so just a thought.
Yes, wonderful. I love that. Yellow connected with green, and when I see that, someone who likes to paint, if you have green and you put more yellow, or you have yellow and you put some green into it, it gives a very, very light green, like a new leaf, isn't it? That beautiful springtime, that beautiful light with a lot of light in it.
I guess it depends how much of each you put in.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So there is in esoteric astrology, which is based on the 7 rays, it's considered a very, helpful sign for Venus to be in, from that understanding. So Venus will be in Gemini for 3 to 4 weeks from the 23rd of June. On the 28th of June, Mars, still making his way through his own sign of Aries, which is all about birthing the new, and even pushing forward into the new, you know, like Mars pushes us to get off our butt and actually do it instead of thinking about it, you know. Do it. So Mars on the 28th and around that date, for that week or so, will be making a conjunction with Eris. And I haven't talked about Eris for a while. Last year she was making these, 2020 really, she's making these really powerful squares to Pluto, but she moves so slowly, she's still actually square to Pluto. And she's that kind of renegade wild card, disruptor, goddess of discord, you know, who upsets the apple cart by demonstrating an uncomfortable truth.
Yes, and wasn't she upset because she didn't get invited to the party?
And she didn't get invited because she was a troublemaker.
Yes.
You know, it's like we want to keep everything nice and beautiful, and not acknowledge this other aspect of us, you know. So she's not invited, so she's not having a bar of that, so she turns up and offers a golden apple, and a whole slew of things happen that reveal and expose certain people and creates a war in the end. So she is this agent of disruption and discord. One is,
sorry, I was just going to say, now, wasn't that the story of Maleficent?
Maybe I must watch that movie again.
Yeah, because she wasn't invited to something, but so she turned up anyway, and everything went to hell after that.
Yes, and it's like there's a story. Isn't there a fairy story about the 13th fairy who wasn't invited to some kind of celebration? It's like not wanting to acknowledge that part of us that's more shadowy and can rock the boat. So, one astrologer refers to Eris as she's a bit of a street fighter. She's out there marching and waving placards and yelling, like she won't have a bar of the status quo if the status quo is hell-bent on just controlling everything.
Yes.
So Mars on the 28th is going to be making this, and around that week is going to be making this conjunction with Eris. So, that's kind of kick-ass energy, really. So it'd be very interesting.
Yeah. You've just given me a clue about something I've been wondering, because I make the soul collage cards, and I've made one that I call the Restless Disturber. And I'm thinking it must be Eris.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Interesting. Thank you for that.
That's amazing. It's like she won't accept the status quo as it is if it's not all inclusive of everything.
Yes.
Yeah. So she will take action on it. She won't just sit back and just go, oh, well, no, she's going to do something about it.
Yes.
So she will disturb and disrupt. Yeah. So it's very powerful. So that's really fascinating to me. That's on the 28th. On the same day, another interesting thing happens, and that is that Neptune turns retrograde. So we're coming into that part of the year where one by one planets are starting to turn retrograde. And, through to about October, we'll have a slew of planets retrograde. This has happened over the last few years. There's rarely periods, we've had a few months earlier in the year when nothing was retrograde.
Yeah.
And as planets turn retrograde, we're going into review and revision and reconsideration. And because so much happens over a period of time, and sometimes we need these respite, all the words that start with RE. We need a period of just kind of catching up with ourselves, to recalibrate, to digest and process everything that's happened. So things move more slowly.
Yeah. I see it too as, it's like our own soul retrieval in a way.
Yes, retrieval. I love that.
Parts of us that have sort of choom, 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 like this, and split off and been set to the side, like when they all go retrograde. and collectively, because it's doing it. They're doing it in a stellium too, aren't they? Are these the planets that are moving in a stellium, or they're not? I was seeing that there's a group of planets at the moment that you can see that all lined up.
They're not technically in a stellium, they're quite spread out.
Okay, right.
But yes, I mean, I'm enjoying sleeping in, so I'm not getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning on these freezing mornings. But yes, early in the morning, if we look to the eastern sky before sunrise, you can see all the visible planets visible.
Yes, that's
they're
right.
not all in the same sign, which technically would be a stellium, but so they're spread out, but you can see them all.
Yes, they're in that same space.
That same sector, that's right. That's right.
So I was getting that a bit confused, but I just see that when they go retrograde like that as a group, it's like, and you just bring all those aspects of yourself back together again.
That's right. It is like soul retrieval. I like that. Yeah. So RE, retrograde, going back, that prefix RE relates to the idea of going back, into review, into retrieval, into recovery even, so there are so-called negative connotations, but there's a lot of really good things that come out of it, It's a reintegration, a recalibration. I like that. Yeah. A reviewing. And, Neptune is that mysterious energy. And I think around those few days of Neptune turning retrograde and being very still and stationary, it's a good time if we can to just rest, don't overschedule ourselves for a couple of days if that's possible, take some time out, meditate, to dream, to imagine, to be creative, those kinds of things.
No chance of that with a Sagittarius.
I know.
So prepare myself.
That's right.
Yes,
that's right. And then the new moon on the 29th, which that's going to be an interesting new moon because it's 7 degrees of Cancer conjunct the black moon Lilith.
Oh, wow.
I know. So that'll be an interesting conversation.
You have a lot to say about black moon Lilith.
Yes, that'll be, very interesting.
Cool.
How'd we do for time?
Oh, well, it's 11 o'clock. We've managed to smash it in an hour. I think that we did very well.
I think we did very well as well.
Well, thank you once again for all that knowledge. It was like absorbing my,
Oh, and yours too. I love your contribution as well. It's fabulous.
Oh, and everyone all our viewers, all of you, thousands of you. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to like and subscribe and leave a comment if you like. We would love that. I didn't reply to some of the comments from our last one. I just got sidetracked, so sorry about that.
Yeah, I think I did. Yeah.
So so stay with us. We will be back in another couple of weeks to talk about the next lunar cycle. Until then, stay safe, everyone, and be well.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.